Did you watch the Dominic Cummings show last night? The critics have been warm about the programme, perhaps less so about his own performance. I suppose one might say it showed how like the rest of us he is, imagining that if only the world would recognise that we should run the country and all the idiots should be sacked, then everything would be better. But amid his descriptions of Downing Street dysfunction and the idiots around him, he also gave a critique of how UK democracy is failing.
You've got political parties as gatekeepers in the system, and all the incentives that operate within that essentially are for MPs to think, how do you climb the party hierarchy, not how do you serve the public? And if you want to escape the problem that we all have had for year after year of watching this thinking, they're all useless, it doesn't matter who you vote for, next bunch of clowns come in, it's the same old thing. We have to address those two closed power systems.
The parties, he's also not a fan of Whitehall and the way that works. Well, is he right? Two politicians who've been around for a while, in and out of flavour within their parties perhaps. Join me. Lord Clark, Ken Clark, Conservative MP for nearly 50 years, held numerous cabinet jobs. And Claire Short was a Labour MP for 27 years and the first Secretary of State for DFID when that was created under New Labour. Welcome both. Claire Short, do you buy what he says about the failing of the party system, that the incentives are all wrong, so you become party apparatchiks and don't serve the country?
I wasn't impressed by him at all and his arrogance, or even what he said, because we knew the things he said, that we locked down late, that people died, and that our Prime Minister isn't the most decisive, clear-thinking person. But I do think our political system is very dysfunctional, not for the same reasons as him. I think, we get governments with less than half the people's vote, with a big majority in the House of Commons, which is our system, an elective dictatorship, as Quinton Hogg said. A government with a big majority can get anything through. And power has gone more and more into the hands of the Prime Minister and number 10. The Cabinet, it hardly operates anymore. And so there's no challenge. And you've got decision-making to impress the media and no challenge. And I think we have to reform the electoral system to make it more representative. And then... So
no majority governments, proportional voting
to
system.
Where the public support is. And then, of course, you've got different parties challenging and you'll get better decision-making. I think our decision-making now is very poor, and that's very worrying.
Ken Clark, before you answer Dominic Cummings' case, I'd like you to just say what you've heard Claire Short say and whether you're a fan of that PR system and, if you like, weaker executive with more accountability.
I'm not in favour of the PR system, no, because our system worked best when the two big parties were two giant coalitions with a broad spread of opinion. The right of each party was far away from the left of each party. They were pre-packed coalitions presented as governments ready to the public, and the result gave a clear government with a mandate to direct the country for the next few years, in a particular line. Where you have multiple party systems, ours is becoming multiple, we'll come back to that in a minute, but where you have multiple party systems which PR produces, then you have an election, nobody gets a majority, and then governments are formed by all sorts of deals between parties which leave people extremely dissatisfied. I mean, this problem of the changing nature of our democracy and the collapse of the old two-party choice, because on the continent it used to be Christian Democrats against Social Democrats, is happening throughout the Western world. And you're getting more simplistic, extreme groups. You have more difficulty, the moderate majority, keeping control of the big parties. We've had an end to the tribal voting we used to have, where most families voted the same day at every election, and we have widespread public cynicism about the whole thing. And it has come together to produce difficulties. One thing where I do agree with Claire is over the last 20, 30 years, this centralisation of power in number 10 is very dangerous. We're developing a kind of centralised presidential system of government without the checks and balances that the presidential system has inflicted on us in America.
But haven't people been saying that for as long as you were in politics?
No.
Okay. No?
If you think, say, Harold Wilson's government, there were some big beasts, the Cabinet was the Cabinet, things were argued through. there was more challenge. And I think, like, if you take the Labour Party, there was challenge. The people that weren't in government would have different views. Now everyone has to be disciplined, toe the line. What's the line for today? No one's thinking or challenging in a good way, saying, have you thought of this? That might not be the right answer.
But Ken Clarke, come back to the Dominic Cummings critique, which was really about the incentives of people working their way up the party are not to think about what the country wants, but to think about what the party wants.
Well, firstly, that's always been the case. Politicians are ambitious, and very high numbers of the MPs in both parties wish to make a career, and parties have always had party discipline. I share Claire's view that it all worked better in the days of Harold Wilson, Harold Macmillan, far more recently than that, actually. In the last 20 years, things were very different. But that is combined with a desire to serve the national interest as well. And people will accept party discipline up to a point, but there's a strong sense of principle, and people know they will resign if they disagree. That's how it used to work, and I think does, with great respect. Neither Claire nor I are in the House now, but I'm not sure party discipline is terribly good on either side of the House of Commons at the moment. It's certainly...
Well, that's the strange paradox, isn't it? Because Claire, you've just been saying it's all about discipline. It doesn't look that disciplined within the parties, and maybe these are just leaders trying to hold everything together
I'm more interested in the issues, and I think one of the major issues for Britain is the high levels of inequality, and that's leading to the disgruntlement and suffering and so on. And you think the Labour Party, it ought to be its issue, and I can't hear it. And if the front bench won't say it, why aren't the back benches saying it? But they're all towing the line and doing what they're told on most questions. I am really saying I think the decision making is poor. There needs to be more challenge. You get better decisions when...
Where does it work better, Claire?
Where in the world?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to cite the United States at the moment, I don't think.
Certainly not. No. Well, I think politics is in trouble everywhere, as Ken has said, and that's partly because the old order needs to change, and therefore the old assumptions of the parties have got to be challenged. I think the Scandinavians do better. I mean, a big adjustment is taking place to them. They're changing the nature
everybody's finding these trends. Ken Clarke, one big change that occurred over recent decades, this doesn't go back into, you don't have to go back to Victorian times for this, is you guys, the MPs, used to choose the party leader. And that did bring a connection to, you had to think about whether you would win your seats and pick someone with some public appeal and maybe someone more central.
That was a very bad move. The reason that the parties used to be held together with a broadly moderate coalition, which appealed to the widest section of the electorate, because both parties have activists who tend to be, the Conservative case, more right-wing, the Labour Party more left-wing than the party in the House. But the leadership was chosen by their colleagues in Parliament, who were actually going to be led day by day by the person chosen, who knew the person chosen, who lived in the political village with them, observed them closely, and were very good judges of who had the right leadership qualities, who was the right person for their party at the time. And that was a great mistake to move away from that, and it's led to both parties being much more unstable and much more inclined to elect people who are really very much on the right in our case, on the left in the Labour Party's case, on issues, which makes them unelectable and turns
Claire, you've got
a number of their supporters off.
A last sentence. Sorry,
that's led to the unstable atmosphere.
I agree that people who know people should do the electing of them, and then the leader would have less power, and there'd be other centres of power in a party, and then more discussion, debate, and clarifying. Great
discussion, both of you. Thanks so much. You should have your own show. Claire Short, Ken Clarke, thank you very much. Just before we go to the weather, news just in: the Department of Health have given a statement. We have accepted the independent pay review recommendation in full for this year, with a 3% pay rise.